Flannery O'Connor was a writer who saw the world differently than almost everyone around her. In her stories, ordinary moments become windows into moral catastrophe. A simple car ride turns into a life-changing meeting with violence. A con artist's search for purpose explodes into redemption. A grandmother's stubborn pride becomes the lens through which grace finally enters her life. O'Connor's complete stories gathers 32 of her finest short narratives into one collection that spans her entire career, from her earliest published work to her final stories before her death at just 39 years old. What makes these stories so unforgettable is not just what happens, but how O'Connor strips away every layer of pretense to expose the raw, troubled, and sometimes terrifying human soul underneath. O'Connor wrote almost exclusively about the American South, not the romanticized South of hospitality and grace, but a region filled with spiritual confusion, social fracture, and people struggling to understand their place in a world that seems increasingly hostile to their beliefs. She called her style Southern Gothic, a literary tradition that finds darkness and horror lurking beneath the surface of everyday life. In O'Connor's hands, a grandmother becomes a desperado's final opportunity for faith. A young farm boy becomes complicit in a murder that awakens his conscience. A woman obsessed with her own moral superiority discovers the depths of her own depravity. These stories are set in small towns, on back roads, in modest homes, in dilapidated farms, places where the reader might expect simple lives and straightforward morality. Instead, O'Connor finds complexity, contradiction, and the constant tension between what people believe about themselves and what they actually are. One of the most striking things about O'Connor's work is her use of violence. Her stories often culminate in sudden, shocking acts of brutality. But violence in O'Connor is never gratuitous. It's always a moment of awakening, a crack in the facade through which something deeper can be glimpsed. Violence becomes the hammer blow that shatters pretense. For O'Connor, a deeply religious Catholic writer, this collision between violence and grace reflects a theological truth, that redemption often comes through suffering, through the violent breaking of our illusions about ourselves. Her characters typically refuse grace until they're forced to confront the limits of their own understanding. A man might cling to his pride until violence teaches him humility. A woman might resist kindness until catastrophe strips away her defenses. Through these brutal moments, O'Connor suggests we glimpse something approaching spiritual truth. Her stories ask, what does it take for a human being to truly see themselves? And when that moment comes, is it already too late? Consider one of her most famous stories, A Good Man is Hard to Find. It's a deceptively simple narrative about a grandmother convincing her son to take a family vacation to a house that may or may not still exist. The grandmother is petty, vain, and constantly bickering with her grandchildren. She's insufferable, really. Along the way, the family car breaks down and meets a mysterious man. The man is an escaped convict, known as the Misfit. A figure who has rejected faith entirely, convinced that since Christ raised the dead, nothing matters anymore. The Misfit and his gang proceed to murder the entire family. But in the final moments, as the grandmother lies dying, something extraordinary happens. She reaches out to the Misfit with compassion. She sees in him a human being worthy of recognition, despite everything he has done. In that instant, she experiences something like grace. The Misfit recoils, not understanding the sudden act of pure human connection. And yet that moment, that inexplicable moment of human warmth in the face of death, is the story's spiritual heart. The grandmother's journey ends in violence, but it begins with redemption. Another story that exemplifies O'Connor's vision is Good Country People. It features a young woman named Hulga, who is bitter, cynical, and convinced of her intellectual superiority. She has a PhD in philosophy and views everyone around her as naive and simple. She dismisses her mother's kindness as weakness and judges her neighbors as fools. Then a Bible salesman arrives at her home, and Hulga's carefully constructed world of superiority comes crashing down. The Bible salesman seduces her. Not morally, but intellectually. He challenges her beliefs and then abandons her, leaving her exposed and vulnerable in ways she never expected. Like many O'Connor characters, Hulga must surrender her pride before she can approach anything resembling truth. She believed herself good, The encounter with the Bible salesman proves her wrong. It's a devastating inversion of her own arrogance. She wanted to seduce him with her intellect, but instead he revealed the emptiness beneath her cynicism. Throughout the complete stories, O'Connor explores what happens when people encounter something they can't control or rationalize away. Her characters are often people of conviction. Religious fundamentalists, intellectuals, moral crusaders, and their certainty becomes the very thing that blinds them to truth. A character convinced of their own goodness is often the most dangerous. A character absolutely certain of their faith may be the furthest from genuine grace. O'Connor doesn't mock religion. She was deeply committed to her own Catholic faith. But she was ruthless in exposing how humans distort faith into narcissism and self-deception. Her story suggests that real spiritual growth requires a kind of death. We must lose our illusions before we can begin to see clearly. We must be humbled before grace can reach us. In story after story, O'Connor creates the conditions for this humbling. She doesn't soften the blow. She doesn't offer false comfort. Instead, she demonstrates with unflinching clarity what genuine transformation requires. The complete stories also include stories of smaller, quieter catastrophes. Why Don't You Dance? Depicts a man sitting surrounded by his furniture on the front lawn, his entire household displayed publicly. A young couple arrives, and he invites them to dance in the yard. The story is almost absurdist, yet deeply melancholic. It captures disconnection, loss, and the inability to communicate what really matters. A late encounter with the enemy follows an old Civil War veteran who attends his great-grandson's college graduation, only to collapse and die amid the ceremony. Revelation portrays a woman visiting a doctor's office who has a mystical vision that shatters her understanding of social hierarchy and moral goodness. The Artificial Nigger explores race, redemption, and human connection in a story that confronts the ugliest aspects of American racism with unflinching honesty. Each story is distinct, yet all share O'Connor's conviction that human beings are broken in ways we desperately try to hide, and that encountering this truth is both terrifying and necessary. What makes O'Connor's complete stories endure across generations is their refusal to offer easy answers. She doesn't tell you what to think. She doesn't wrap her narratives in moral conclusion. Instead, she presents situations of terrible clarity and lets the reader confront the complexity. Her prose is precise, her dialogue is razor-sharp, and her ability to capture both the ridiculous and the tragic within a single moment is unparalleled. She died at 39, before her full potential could be realized, but the stories she left behind demonstrate a master of her craft. These are stories that disturb, that provoke, that reveal uncomfortable truths about human nature and our desperate need for meaning. They're stories about small towns and ordinary people, but they're also stories about all of us. About the ways we hide from ourselves, the illusions we cherish, and the grace that sometimes arrives only when we've exhausted every other option. In the complete stories, Flannery O'Connor created a body of work that stands among the greatest achievements in American literature. Thanks for watching this journey through Flannery O'Connor's complete stories. If you enjoyed exploring these dark, profound tales of grace and transformation, please subscribe for more book summaries and news stories. We bring you the greatest works of literature in full, immersive detail. Don't miss what's next.